Hello and welcome to our show. I'm Dale Matthews. I'm joined by Mike Jones. Hello, Mike.
Hey, Dale.
So, tonight we have for you some cutting edge news, some things that nobody knows. We're the first ones to announce it. There have been problems with the county commissioners getting together in a quorum and deciding to discuss county business in a way that is illegal by Oregon state law. We've also discussed over a period of time that we believe that they are doing their executive sessions, their little secret sessions in the back room, and that they are discussing topics that don't properly belong back there, things that are embarrassing, that they'd really prefer not to talk to each other about in front of the public. That's illegal. They can only go back there for things like some union negotiations, or someone's got a mental problem and they're going to have to do something about it. It's none of our business how they're going to solve that, really. I don't want to know the person's name or the medical details, but they do get involved in that. I don't like it in general, but it's okay for them to do that. What they're not allowed to do is, if somebody such as Mike and I bring up something that's embarrassing to them, they can't decide to go into a secret session to talk about it with Wally Hicks just because they're embarrassed by it. That's not okay. Mike, tell us a little bit more about public meeting law and why you think that these laws even started. What's the many people know, some people don't. What's the general purpose of conducting your business in public? Please tell us a little bit about your opinion.
I think most people will know who have watched this show that in terms of knowing things about public meeting law, Dale is the expert on that. I know very little. I respond when people tell me about, what's going on. But listen, clearly, the reason for public meeting law being what it is that they are doing in the tradition of the United States of America, where we, have a supreme law, the Constitution, which lays out the hierarchy for the entire country. And that's usually mirrored in the states and localities. And that is that they're working for us, that they're doing our business. And so it's only morally correct that they do that business in public, where it can be seen, and that they're not back somehow conspiring against the citizenry.
And that's how all this started, because there were smoke-filled little back rooms. The only thing that's changed is no smoke, right? And one of the things in the state of Oregon is that if you're recognized, pay attention to this, if you're recognized by your county government, for example, as being media, not even news media, just media, then you are allowed into executive session, but you can't record anything. You can take some notes, but you're not supposed to reveal what you heard in there. I mean, in general. And the purpose of that is what they're thinking. The checks and balances here are that if you hear them talking about something that really properly belongs to be talked about in public, you're supposed to say something. And all those months that I appeared there, 6 months, I only said something one time, and they all went, "Oh, yeah, you're right." I didn't even need to mention what it was, because they knew that they were veering off course. They're supposed to say what the general subject is. We'll be talking about the budget, okay? And they're supposed to stick to the subject and not suddenly start talking about something else that's embarrassing just because it might be convenient for them, but they're supposed to talk about that in public so that we know. And one of the things you want us to do is to hold them accountable, right? And so we try to follow up on that and make sure they're accountable. If we have no idea what they're talking about and there's no accountability, and they decided they don't want to record it, yeah, and that they would prefer to have no witnesses. So what do you mean they prefer to have no witnesses? Tell them what happened after 6 months of me going into executive session, because we're media. We're obviously media. Tell them what happened to badcounty.com and to me, Mike Jones.
Well, again, Dale's asking me questions. I have no idea.
Sure, he does. You all know the answers.
I suspect that they threw you out and said, we're no longer going to allow you to have, media privileges.
Because you're not media of any kind. What you're watching is not happening. Does that sound familiar? You're watching something, but it's not really happening because we're not media, you see. Now, I have sort of a purist attitude about this. I think that if you have a motto written on a coffee cup and it says no new taxes, that's media. It might be a really short message, or don't vote for the sales tax and grants pass. That's media. It's on a coffee cup. It doesn't have to be a newspaper. As the one lady said to me one time when we were publishing the First Friday, she said, well, who gave you permission to print a newspaper?
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, who gave you permission? And even when we were doing that, when we're doing this now, 300,000 views. Tomorrow will be our 300th show in a row, live. We talk about county, but well, of course they don't like it, but we are media. I mean, there's no escaping the fact that we are, okay. But they really prefer not to have, and they never have anybody back there. I mean, every once in a while, Jim Moore would hoist himself in there. They had nothing to say, nothing, Anyway, the point is that they didn't want really any witnesses. Now, KRRM can show up because they're recognized as news media, not just media, but news media. KRRM radio plays country music. They don't have any news. They're happy to accept them as news, even though they don't have any news.
Now, let me ask you, has anybody been showing up to these suspect? No. So no media has been showing up. So it's basically just them in the room.
Right. Now, yes. Now, the other rule about all this is that you're not supposed to reveal what happened. I only know one time when that rule was broken. It was the reporter from the Daily Courier who went in, saw what happened, and it ended up on the front page, secret session agenda, the next day.
Wow. Well, I mean, didn't her editor go, well, weren't you in an executive session? Is that where this came from?
Nobody said anything. There were no repercussions. The commissioners were not upset.
Wow.
She kept her privileges. The Daily Courier is still invited every day of the week because they print the press releases.
Well, were they, do you think that there was some sort of a deal like, hey, go ahead and print this, or?
I don't know.
I mean, that sort of defeats executive session.
Kind of does, doesn't it?
Because what's the point of holding it in private if it's then going to be publicized widely?
Right. Now, I was there for that one. One of the last ones they allowed me into. They allowed her to break the rules, but I never would do that. Are you kidding me? Of course I'm not going to do that. It's obeying the rules. And these rules where Mike says, well, Dale's the expert. Thank you very much, Mike. But it doesn't take much. I mean, it's all written down. It's there for all of us to see what are the rules. But I mean, you can't go to a meeting of, you're not supposed to, go to a meeting of the Rotary Club and decide to throw everybody out but the members of the Rotary Club and then discuss county business in a quorum. You're not allowed to do that. It's obvious. You're not allowed to do it. So over the years, with various commissioners, I have done this, and Sandy Casanelli has done this. We have gone to the commissioners and we say, look, here's what the rules are. Yeah, well, that's what you say. No, these are the rules. They're written down. Yeah. Okay. And then what we did was we printed out copies and we gave them to the commissioners. These are what the rules say. Sure. And then they made fun of us, both of us, mostly me. And you may recall, we don't even need to play it back for you, but the time that Simon Hare was on the radio with Carl Wilson, who's your state representative now. And Carl purports to be a news reporter also with a news station. And Simon was laughing and laughing. These gnats in the room, that's me, that's us. These gnats in the room, they're always talking about things like state law, and obeying the open public meeting law. I mean, get serious. There's much more important things happening. Well, corruption starts in small stuff. And when they can just decide to take a vote in a parking lot, that story. They actually took a vote in a parking lot leaving KJO. What do you think we should do? And they talked to each other and came to a decision in a parking lot. Now, if you love that kind of government, you got it in spades, buddy. I mean, just go ahead and vote again for Keith Heck. He'll keep doing it. Because what was Keith Heck's response to all of that kind of thing that had gone before? He could have said, I don't know what the law is. Well, we've given them copies. Well, I can't look up the rule for myself because I can't read English. Okay, we've given them copies and we told them orally. Well, I don't think I've ever heard of that. Well, we went to the weekly best session and told them again and again and again, these are the rules. They're easy to follow. They used to follow. Commissioners in the past used to follow the rules, not these guys. No, Keith Heck didn't say, I don't know. He said, I do know. I know we're breaking the law. Gee, what does that mean? Does it mean he does know or he doesn't know? I know we're breaking the law, and I don't care. Well, now he does care. Because it's just, go ahead. I'm going to tell you why now he knows.
I'm not convinced. I think they'll probably let this roll off them like water off a duck's back.
Okay, we don't know what this is. That's what I was about to tell them, what this is.
Oh, okay.
Roll off their back. The state, Sandy Casanelli and I both sent in information again. And the result all these times has been, boys will be boys. Well, there's been some changes at the State Ethics Commission. I think they may have some new people there. There's also been changes because, Mike, you want to tell people about what happened with the governor and his girlfriend?
Well, I mean, again, I don't know that much about what the governor and his girlfriend, but there was some corruption there. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with this situation.
Sure, State Ethics Commission got involved, and now suddenly
and then they didn't do anything about that particular situation, did they?
No, but they did investigate.
That makes this situation and that situation completely dissimilar.
Okay, but they did get a lot of media attention for this. Suddenly the State Ethics Commission is like right up front. Oh, really? You can investigate things, can you? Because I asked them, I said, what do you do here? Well, we don't really investigate ethics violations. You don't?
Silly.
It's called the State Ethics Commission. Anyway, the Oregon State Ethics Commission, Governmental Ethics Commission, OGEC, we sent them, once again, we sent them the proof that these guys were goofing up. Well, they actually investigated. Go figure. Friday, they had a meeting. I didn't hear about it. I'm one of the people that, but I didn't get any notification, but Sandy Casanelli did. And they came to a very quick conclusion. These three commissioners are guilty of violations. Now, this isn't going to be in the Courier, and it's certainly not going to be on KJO. Can you imagine? I mean, the station would burn down.
Well, actually, I think that I think they probably will cover it now that it's been covered here, because if they don't cover it now that it's been covered here, they're really ultimately going to look pretty bad as a result.
As opposed to win. Okay, the county commissioners will be on KJO tomorrow morning. It's their monthly session. Let's see if Chuck Benson and company decide to mention a single word about this. Let's see if they decide to mention anything about the grant. I think Cheryl's going to bring that up on her own. Let's see if they mention anything about the fire standards. I mean, these are pretty embarrassing stories.
You're right. I wouldn't hold my breath on any of that stuff. But I mean, ultimately, they're going to have to say something, because this news here is going to get out. People are going to begin to talk about it and what it means. And quite frankly, I expect less than justice. This is what I always expect when there's somebody that really needs to have some justice. Chances are they're not going to get it, and that's just par for the course. I'll be pleasantly surprised if something happens as a result of this. And it's funny because, Wally Hicks has been warning them on a number of occasions that we have on video. We just played one a couple of days ago. Right. And why they couldn't, I don't know. there's probably not a whole lot of rules that they need to stick to as commissioners, that they can't be held on a sheet of paper and go, oh yeah, okay, and they, reference them from time to time to make sure that you're doing it correctly.
Their
I mean,
previous legal counsel told them, don't worry about obeying those laws. No one's enforcing them.
Right.
So I think that this is a story about Wally Hicks, and I'll tell you why. Before Wally even decided to run for legal counsel, I talked to him because I'm there all the time. And I said, I'm hoping that one thing that you will do is try to get them to obey the law. I mean, that seems to me to be fairly basic. Just obey the law. And he hadn't heard, or said he hadn't heard, most of the things that had happened in the past. And I said, that would be really great if we can get them to do that. Your legal counsel, you could counsel them about this. Yeah, well, I'll look into that. Okay. It's good enough for me. After he announced, I talked to him about it again. And I said, looking forward to this because here's some of the things they're doing, and talked about executive session and a few other things. And it's like, okay. When he won in the primary, because he got more than 51% in the primary, which means there's no general election for his office. He's the only elected legal counsel in the state. And so when he won in the primary, I went in and I talked to him about one thing. Can you guess what it was? This same issue. And his first day of office, this is a little too much, really, but I went and I talked to him about it. So when I say it's too much, what effect did that have? Well, one thing is, he sat down with the commissioners and he gave them a letter saying, this is what the law is. They acted like they never heard of it before. Why, my gosh, certainly we can, you saw the tape, certainly we can get together and talk about county business without having to be bothered. No, you can't do that. Yeah, well, we're not actually taking a vote. It doesn't say take a vote. It says gather information with the possibility. Go ahead.
And they were almost whining about it.
They were. Keith Heck especially was upset. And Cheryl Walker looked fit to be tied, buddy. And Simon Hare said the same thing he's been saying for 5 years. They shouldn't have to do this. And that's what the law is. You don't like the law, change the law. But you swore to uphold that law. You swore to uphold that law. You put your hand on a Bible and said, I will uphold that law. And it's easy. It's not, you don't need to be a Rhodes Scholar to figure this out. You don't need any road funds at all. What you need to do is just have your heart in the right place, but theirs isn't. Now, why would I be upset with Wally? Because he said to them, look, don't do this. And they weren't too happy. And then he sat in on the executive sessions, because executive session is with the county lawyer while they were breaking the law. And he could have said, now, wait a minute. This should not be part of this. If I can do it, just sitting there for the 6 months that I did it and see it, certainly the lawyer can see it. And is this just my opinion? No, it's the opinion of the State Ethics Commission. They broke the law.
Yeah, I guess this is yet another example of when you get in an environment around corrupt people and you're not morally strong enough that you get sucked into the whirlpool or something. I'd hate to think that that's what it is, because generally speaking, in my dealings with Wally, I have liked the guy. Seems like a nice guy.
Yeah. But
he does seem to be sensitive about some of the stuff he's been asked about lately as it relates to people potentially doing the wrong thing or whatever. And it may well be that during the time when that session was going on with the fire companies about the fire safety, the fire protection safety ordinance, that he already knew that this was in the pipeline. Yeah. And then that is the why you were getting the cold shoulder.
No kidding, cold shoulder. Yeah. He was denying that there were things look, forget about the fact that I talked to him in his office and try to tease him out of it just as a friend 3 times in a row. No, Wally, you're not saying it's not on the tape. You can't be saying that. Yes, I am. No, no, no. You can't be saying that, Wally. Okay. And then visited him later when he was hopping mad that I related any part of our conversation. It wasn't secret. Okay. I mean, if you're going to take that stand, you just took a side, bud. Well, I'm not happy with you. Okay. But the thing is that he sat right, forget about the fact that I said that, because there's no proof. I can't videotape everywhere I'm going. Well, am I crazy? I guess, maybe we need one of those cameras like of the police or something, and so there's plenty of room for well, maybe you just didn't understand. Just all you need to do is go back to the meeting where he's sitting there with the commissioners. It's right here over my shoulder. There he is. He's sitting with them. And they're saying, we would certainly never try to influence the amounts of money that these people are, or try to like approve anything. And Keith Eck is saying, well, I don't want to approve what they're doing. And Cheryl Walker is saying, I'm paraphrasing, she's saying something like, well, I agree, though I think we should approve what they're doing. Simon Harris saying, well, I kind of agree. I think we're seeing eye to eye on most of this. And Keith is, oh, really? And Simon, yeah, well, except for the fact that we should obviously approve and they should submit to us their rates. And then they're going to need to justify what the rates are. Now, who's sitting right there?
Yeah.
Now, they're saying two different things. They are. That's Simon Harris, famous for that in 5 years. Say this two different things in one sentence. These guys are saying it. And Wally Hicks, as your elected legal counsel, he's defined himself as, well, I'm here to keep them out of trouble. He's not doing a very good job. They're going to get fined. Probably not a lot, but they found them guilty. Wally, the reason they found them guilty is that you're not doing your job. Now, what other interpretation is it? And he's sitting right there when they're doing these things in an open public meeting. And I think most human beings that aren't cowed by their surroundings would say, no, wait a minute, which is it? I mean, you're now saying you're going to do it and you're not going to do it. Which is it? Well, he's the one writing the rules. He's writing it for them.
Somewhere between this is not an editing session and today, Wally has perhaps subjugated himself to this board and decided that he is their attorney. And, they get to tell him what to do and, what he's going to say happened or didn't happen in a particular meeting. What other conclusion can you draw observing this? I'd like to have another story.
I'm going to ask you for some supposition, Mike. It's tough on Mike Day. Sorry.
I never do that.
I know. No suppositories for Mike. Yes. One of the things that the citizens here did that's unique in the entire state of Oregon, it's because of our charter, the one that Wally says they're required not to say anything when things go wrong. That was a little dismaying. He says some good things too. Okay. One of the things that happened is the citizens decided everywhere else in the state, the lawyer for a county is appointed by the Board of County Commissioners. But the citizens here got up on their hind feet and said, you know what? We don't want that anymore. We want to elect our legal counsel. Can you imagine the controversy at that time? Elected? Nobody elects them. You can't do that. But they decided to do so. What would you guess, Mike, would be the reason, not the specific reason, but why would the population decide to actually change their charter and the way that things are done so that we'd end up with an elected legal counsel? Not what specifically, not what personalities, but what do you think that they had in mind with all that, so that the legal counsel would be beholden to whom?
Yeah, to the people, and then also that they would be able to choose who they hired. An election is a vetting of sorts or it should be, certainly more than it has been here in this county. It gives you opportunity to look into the background of these people, make judgments about their character, things of that nature.
and to exert a little bit of influence on what they're doing, because maybe it's an impossible job and shouldn't be done this way. But the job is to both keep the county commissioners out of trouble, which hasn't been working, and to be responsible to the people, which hasn't been working. Now, I like the guy. I already said that several times. Mike likes him too, but this isn't working out. He's chosen a side. The side that he chose, and the thing that just kills me, is he chose the side of saying that the things that you've seen on tape never happened. That's crazy. It's certainly a tactic. It's not one that's going to last very long, but that's what he said. It didn't happen. And even if he never said that, which he did, but even if he didn't, you saw him in this meeting. He's in charge of writing up the new version. He wrote version 3, the one that Simon didn't want to tell you who wrote it. Wally wrote it. So now in version 4, you heard Cheryl say, well, I think we should leave it to Wally to rewrite that. How the heck is he going to rewrite that when she said, and they've all said, both, we're going to tell these companies what to do and we're not going to tell these companies what to do? How's he going to reconcile that? Shouldn't he be asking them a question?
Oh, I tend to think that they're having discussions about this, perhaps one-on-one.
Or an executive session.
Yeah, where, you know, a couple of them talk about blah, blah, blah to one of them, and then one of them goes over and tells him, you know, or maybe they have an editing session where they're all together and they discuss how it's going to be.
That's what the state found. That they were actually discussing stuff in secret session that should not be discussed there.
Yeah.
They found them guilty.
And you know, I want to be careful here, because do we know for a fact that Wally was in those sessions in question, and that they were not supposed to have a session on that particular topic, you know, at that time?
That's what the state says. Okay. Now, there's certainly a possibility when they have executive session that is with the county lawyer or with legal staff. Now, there's always a possibility if someone has an extended illness or something, that for many meetings in a row, you might just have the staff there. That's a possibility. I don't think that's what this is about, because that's not what I saw. Okay, but
and is the ethics board, are they privy to the minutes and perhaps recordings of these sessions as well?
Yes, they are. So they know what happened. Now, the ethics commission didn't even try. They are not going to go up against a fellow lawyer.
Okay. So, well, you know, this answers a lot of the questions, because they had to subpoena that information.
Yes,
or
they did.
Certainly had to notify, and it probably took them, let's just say, being kind to bureaucracy, weeks to.
That's being kind.
To process it. And so Wally did know, and that explains a few things, I guess.
Now, just imagine our county commissioners and going through our legal counsel. They were subpoenaed. Just that word ought to make them cringe. We've been telling them this for years. And Keith's attitude was, I know we're breaking the law. He knows it. He doesn't need to be informed. He said, I know it. Simon Harris been, gnats in a room. It amounts to nothing. Those stupid citizens, they just think, you know. Art Harvey, hey, question government, you're a moron. Well, nothing's going to happen to these guys. They're going to get a $1.95 fine, or they're going to get time off for bad behavior or something. There's nothing's going to happen to them, but that's not really the point. This is the first time we've been able to get the state to do any kind of enforcement of their own rules. These aren't gitchy little rules that don't mean anything. These are things where, and how do you feel about it? Again, this is not, well, you're supposed to say blue, but you said green. Forget about that. This is, are you allowed to have secret meetings in the little back room? Okay, let's put it a different way. Are you allowed to have executive sessions in the executive boardroom and then talk about subjects that are illegal to talk about in executive session?
I would think no.
No, the answer is no. Okay, so our second subject for today is we're telling you now we're going to have much more information about this. Oh, you can count on it. You asked us to follow through, hold their feet to the fire, keep them accountable. We intend to do so. Whether anybody else reports it or not doesn't matter. I'd like them to. And I'm going to talk to the new guy at the Courier, and I'm going to say, listen, here we've now covered this. Once we're there first, and this just happened Friday, and today's Monday. So we just got this information. It's still streaming in. It's streaming in as we're talking right now. So we haven't had a chance to look at every document. Oh, but we sure will, and we'll tell you what's happening. Another cutting edge news story is what's been going on with the Emergency Management Performance Grant. Mike, can you just give us a short little update for people who may have been gone for a week or something?
Well, yeah, and I wish I had the hang on a second, maybe I can get this in front of me here real quick to read the description, how the commissioners described this for the weekly business session agenda. It tells, I mean, it gives you enough to say, well, I really would like to see a little bit more of that. And
no, I have it. And if it's going to take you a while, I do have it.
Oh yeah, no, that would be really good, because that really kind of lights the fuse there.
Okay. Now, mostly for me at this point, what we know, not what we suppose, not what the possibilities are, although they're not so good, but what do we know? Mike's going to talk to you about what we know, but I'm going to tell you what the contract says. The contract between the county commissioners, between us as a county, and the organization at the state and then federal level, is with the Oregon Military Department. Oregon Military Department, which is part of the Office of Emergency Management. Okay. Which is part of their Emergency Management Performance Grant, the people that give that out. And they have to do a threat and hazard identification and risk assessment guide. They have to look at that. Really?
Mm-hmm.
What does all that mean? Now, looking and the contract, which we're going to talk about just a second, but let me just tell you what this thing is about. So we're pouring through this information, and most of it's just like, well, let's do the best job that we can, sustainable, and it's going to be for the best of the integrity of the United States of America. What? Would you just tell me what it's about? As you go further through this document, and it's that kind of obtuse statements all the way through. We've looked at hundreds of pages now to try to get to the facts about what are we getting this money for? You say that it's happened year after year. Well, I put in the request to find out, well, what happened with it last year? What happened with it the year before? Have we really done it every year? What's it for? According to this, okay, it's something like half of it, or half of the description, is about what are you going to do if there's an earthquake? I want us to be prepared for an earthquake. Of course I do. Okay, of course. Then they also talk about, well, what would happen if there was civil insurrection and you had to put down the people? What?
Yes.
Oh, really? Oh,
yes.
That just feeds into the paranoia around here. And is there a reason for paranoia? Sometimes.
Yeah, and it's not really sure in this thing that's what's going on. But the thing is that none of anything that the commissioners are saying about this has any specificity to it at all.
Right.
And when you go to the threat and hazard identification and risk assessment page of FEMA, you get, there's about threat and hazard identification and risk assessment, and it goes into all of the criteria, and some of it has to do with essentially, in a nutshell, putting the people down.
Yeah, and it does remind me of, I don't think Mike's going to like this, but and he's cringing. It does remind me a little bit of Joseph Rice and the presentation he did to the Chinese military. I'm not making this up. This was right here in Merlin. Okay. And what happened was the Chamber of Commerce said, I asked him, I said, why are these people from the Chinese military here? Oh, they just happened to wander in. This was the wrong thing to say. They just happened to wander in. I'm not making that up. That's what they said. Well, that's not right, you guys. And so what was happening is he was demonstrating a money-making venture. Okay, cool. I like money-making ventures. It doesn't seem like it, but I do. And the idea was dual use technology, which is what this is about, dual use of this money. And the dual use technology in his case was why the Chinese military could use this to put out forest fires in China underneath a U.S. military helicopter. Okay. Oh, and they could also fill it full of caustic chemicals that could be used to put down civil insurrection in China, like Tiananmen Square. That's dual use technology. This is all about dual use technology too. You could take the money and you could use it for earthquake mitigation. I love that idea. Or you could use it to put down civil insurrection, which is going to start in the next couple of hours.
Yeah, and here's just a little paragraph that gives you whets the appetite to read the rest of the document there. It says the threat and hazard identification and risk assessment (THERA) is a 4-step common risk assessment process that helps the whole community, including individuals, businesses, faith-based organizations, nonprofit groups, and academia, and all levels of government. Understand its risks and assessment capability requirements.
Well, I know more now than ever before.
Yes, the THERA process helps communities map their risks to their core to the core capabilities, enabling them to determine whole community informed desired outcomes, capability targets, and resources required to achieve their capability targets.
Now he's not just reading the introduction where you expect blather like that. Welcome to the wonderful world of refrigerators. Okay, no, he's not just reading. The whole document's filled full of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And it's wonder, well, what are we going to use it for? Don't tell me, that the children and the pets are going to love it. Tell me what it's for.
Yeah, the thing that the only thing. Listen, perhaps it's probably there's nothing to be worried about probably in this, not. But when stuff is written in this way, it's purposefully vague.
Yes.
I think there is reason to stop for a second because, hey, guess what? Regardless of what the federal government says, we have our own government here that should say, hey, wait a minute. What is the goal here? What are we trying to achieve? Should we be taking $93,000 of our citizens' money to match their funds so that we can then spend $187,000 on an agenda that is clearly not going to be set by us locally, but be set by the federal government? Why is it that we and why should we care enough about what their agenda is to throw $93,000 of our own money into that?
Now, okay. So let me insert also a little sanity on top of Mike and I both, and many of you. Okay, almost certainly, this is my supposition. This is all benign. I mean, this, of course, you would want most of these things, and there's possibilities that things could go
maybe if we knew what they were.
If we knew what they were, but let's just for the moment of discussion here, we'll specify that this is all good stuff. We'll all want this. And if we got the faith-based organizations together with the children's schools, why, we would all march in unity and red flags flying in the middle of the street. And we'd all say, okay, red, white, and blue flags flying, if you insist. Green flags too. And multicolored flags. Woohoo. And that we'd all agree that this is the perfect thing to do. Okay. But there's a problem that we've already identified and we told you about. The contract that was signed by Keith Eck on behalf of the entire Board of County Commissioners was for what was it, Mike?
$93,715.
That's the contract that they signed. What did Cheryl tell us that wasn't the case, that it was for what?
Well, she didn't say anything different about what it was for. She said that it was only
Our
going to
part of it was going to
cost us,
cost
right,
us.
$3,327.
That's a little bit different.
Yeah, and nobody seems to know where she came up with that number.
Oh, I know where she pulled that out of, but we're not going to talk about it on this show. This is a family show. Look, here's the point. If they truly believe, Keith Heck signed it. I've seen the signature on there. He signed it right after that meeting. If he truly believes in what Cheryl told you, do you? That is $3,327. Then he just signed a $94,000 contract based on her statement. It's not 3,000. She even repeated it. Well, we're getting a really good deal for 3,000.
Yeah,
that's not what the contract says.
And then Simon even questioned it and thought, well, normally these things are 50-50, but
yeah. What's your clue? The part that says this is 50-50?
Well, yeah, they could have even read that in the documents that were attached to the agenda that had to do with that week's weekly business session.
Yep. This is why, that Sandy Casanelli's always asking for copies of stuff. This is why we want to read the copies. This is why they need to be honest with us about what they're doing. This is why transparency is important. They've just signed a contract for $94,000 with Cheryl saying, no, it's for $3,000 and we're going to get 94 out of it. That's not what the contract says. And it doesn't matter whether it's for benign things or not. They don't know what they're signing. They haven't read it. They obviously haven't read it. Did Simon look at that meeting like he had read this and he had answers? He didn't have any answers. They don't know what they're doing. They're signing a contract, and so maybe it's a wonderful project, but it doesn't matter. They don't know what they're doing.
It was pretty clear in this case when they took the vote on it, they were unclear about what their contribution was.
That part, absolutely ironclad, we're sure about. They signed a contract. Now, it may be somebody's going to say, well, you think they're going to bring this up tonight at their Cave Junction meeting? You think they're going to bring it up on KJO tomorrow? You think anyone's going to bring this up on the Wednesday weekly business session about what's going on with this? What have we signed here? They're not going to want to talk about that. We're the ones that are trying to say, you need to talk about that. What have you now signed? They don't know. If it's on a bunch of other documents that will make it clear, where are the documents? Oh, well, you should look at the addendum. It makes it clear everything that we're going to do. There's no addendum.
Well, and not only that, listen, according to Cheryl, this has been going on for years.
Oh, really? I even sat there and I said, well, okay, it's been going to go on for years. And then I thought about it. What's the matter with me? Who says it's been going on for years? Why would I doubt that? Well, I do now. So I asked the office staff, I said, I realize I'm going to have to pay for this. It's going to cost you a lot of money to keep up with what we're doing, Mr. Matthews. Okay. I want to see how much they spent last year. Because if they spent $94,000 or anywhere close to it last year, and supposedly the year before, then why has it suddenly dropped down to $3,000? It hasn't.
Yeah, and why would they not just go, oh, that's that again? That's 50%. We already know that because we've done this 2 or 3 times before. All of us have.
So let's give them the benefit of the doubt again. Why, Cheryl just misspoke that one time. No, she repeated it. Okay, well, yeah, Cheryl was a little confused, but she said, why are people making a big deal about this? They're trying to make it look like it's a big burden on us, and it's not, because we're getting a heck of a deal. Really? She couldn't pass up the opportunity to make fun of the people who brought it up. You're questioning government. You're morons. She couldn't pass up that opportunity. She had to make something out of it. Why, this is a good deal. And those people who question this will be the first in line wanting the benefits from this wonderful contract. She said that. So, they'd be much further along if they didn't keep trying to make fun of the people asking the questions. That's us. It's not just me and Mike, it's you guys too. And say, that's an interesting question. I don't know. Let's postpone this and we'll find out why. And we'll answer your questions before we sign the document. They'd be further along. That's the smart thing to do. Can we get them to do the smart? Oh, I got to stop asking that question. Can we get them to do the smart thing? What's this really about? Even if it's a wonderful thing and it's about eagles soaring, and we all want eagles soaring, okay, except maybe for cats. Can you please sign the right contract and know what you're talking about? That'd be a start. And could you please be honest instead of having to be found guilty by the state? And Wally Hicks, buddy, you've chosen a side. You've just gone the wrong direction, bud. I don't know if you can ever turn around now that you've taken a stand of saying what's obviously on tape is not on tape. That's not good. I'm not sure you can ever reverse from that. You can say, I'm sorry. You can say, I won't do it again. See, one of Mike's big deals is, and I can talk to him this way because we're on here and he could drop out if he likes, but one of Mike's big deals is what you want to be sure about is that if you go into government service, that you're not going to be changed by the system. This was Sandy Casanelli's biggest worry. She wasn't. But we've seen this happen with so many people. They get in there and to kind of go along to get along and to kind of, get along with me stopping by and asking Wally questions every once in a while. Well, this doesn't make any sense. Why is this happening? It got to a point where he was increasingly kind of, he would be kind of reticent to talk to me about things because if he agreed that this didn't make a whole lot of sense, and you could see it in our interviews with him, it's kind of like, because that means then that the commissioners, who the heck are the commissioners? They don't have any qualifications. They don't need any at all. Cheryl won by 62 votes. Who the heck are these guys? Aren't we more important? You're elected by us. Don't you want to stick on the side of people who are asking questions that are legitimate ones and then trying to get the answer? Isn't that better than covering things up and insisting that the videotape doesn't say what it says?
Yeah, I think so.
So what's your prescription? Not your prognostication. What's your summary about where we can possibly be going, Mike, with these two stories? I'll let you bring it on home with the story about the performance grant and the story about the state finding the commissioners guilty as charged.
Well, the performance grant thing, there needs to be a lot more digging there to find out exactly what's going on. We're probably not going to get any clarification on that from the commissioners themselves. No. And of course, this is really, it's up to the ethics department there to determine, what the outcome is going to be on their violations. What repercussions. If there isn't really much in the way of repercussions, this will just harden them in their positions. They'll just say, okay. And they'll be even more belligerent to citizens and more belligerent to Dale probably
referring to us as gnats in the room. That's nice.
Yeah. That sort of thing. You're going to have more arrogance from these people is what you're going to get. So, a lot of the change that comes out of this judgment depends on what the repercussion to these people individually is. And listen, it may well be that Wally Hicks is going to go, I've seen the writing on the wall, and now I'm going to, if these people push back to me at all, I'm going to get right in their face.
Which people?
Say, no, this is the way it's going to be, the commissioners.
Oh, okay. Because so far it's been the other way around lately.
No, I understand, and quite frankly, I don't expect that. But that, you would think. Isn't this a shot across his bow? It's like, hey, wait a minute. Now I'm going to be judged by the behavior of this board, so I had best begin watching what I'm doing. And, ultimately the record at the end of their term in office is going to reflect on me somewhat.
That's
So
what we've been trying to tell him now since he got in office. In summary, again, summarizing, this is so very unusual. The State Ethics Commission does not like doing this. So it really had to be egregious for this to happen. It's very unusual for them to come down in this way.
Or it's either that or they're throwing a bone because these requests to investigate are coming in like probably once a week.
They are coming in a lot. And these are not tiny little gitchy issues like, well, you should have used the staples on the right and not on the left. This is not that kind of stuff. This is, don't break the law. It's clear what the law is. And if the law wasn't crystal clear, as it was in previous cases with these same guys, and they said, well, we're not sure we want to, yes, that's a violation. We're not sure we're going to enforce the law. Now, they're finally actually enforcing their own laws that are crystal clear. And it's not tiny stuff. It's that you're not allowed to do this at all. You can't have a meeting where you're discussing county business with all your pals and a secret session with your pals and excluding everybody else. Colleen Martin's behind some of that. She's with the Chamber of Commerce. Ask me how I know. No. This is not right. And Wally's in it up to his neck. And now he's got fellow lawyers who are saying, you were there. You were in the room. They're not going to blame him because that's not what they do. But he may think that he dodged some kind of bullet. And it doesn't matter if they're charged 25 cents. They've been found guilty. We've been saying it from the beginning. You asked us to look into it. We will. And we're going to follow both of these stories. Thanks for your attention this evening. Now we're going to head off to another meeting. Bye-bye.